Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by cats.
We are sponsored by cats.
We are.
How does that even work?
Opie, there is no way about talking about cats that enables anyone to come off as a sane person.
So very true.
Hello, Lieutenant.
There you are, Mr. Campbell. I've been waiting for you very anxiously since your call.
I hurried down here as fast as I could.
Mr. Campbell, if your evidence can give me a clue to the identity of Mr. Martin's killer, we'll break this case wide open.
Lieutenant, it's not an easy thing for me to bear. First, my partner was killed, and now with this photograph I'm putting on your desk, I condemn as the murderer
His wife? Good heavens. Why didn't you show me this sooner?
I thought you might suspect her and solve the case, and I would have been able to remain silent.
Look at this picture. It's the perfect evidence. His body on the floor in front of the couch and she leaning over him, with a gun still in her hand. Why, this'll send her to the chair.
I know. It wasn't easy for me to give it to you.
How on earth did you ever get it?
Well, I had an appointment with my partner at a little after 11 p.m. at his house.
Mm-hmm.
When I came up the walk, I was surprised to see that the house was dark.
Oh, yeah.
You see, you must pass the large bay window in the living room when coming up the walk. The room was very dark, but by the faint light from some burning coals in the fireplace, I could see Mr. Martin's body lying in front of the large couch.
You could?
Yes. I saw my partner's wife come into the room. She had a gun in her hand.
Well, how did you get the picture?
Well, I've always been a camera enthusiast. I happened to have a small box camera with me, and without her noticing me, I took a picture of the room.
It's really a remarkable photograph.
I've kept it hidden for several days, but when you found no trace of the murderer, I decided that you would have to have it.
I'm glad you did, Mr. Campbell. It isn't exactly safe to withhold evidence, but now we have it, and it looks like the Martin case is closed.
Yes?
Mr. Campbell, there's a gentleman from the police department to see you.
Oh, send him in. Always glad to help the police. Well, hello, Lieutenant. It's good to see you.
Sorry to bother you, Mr. Campbell. It's about the Martin case.
Oh, but I thought the case was closed. You've arrested Mrs. Martin, haven't you?
Yes, but there are some points about the case that still puzzle me.
Really? But you have the evidence in black and white.
But have I? Will a jury accept the picture? You've heard of process shots, haven't you?
No, I don't believe I have.
You're lying, Mr. Campbell. That picture you gave me was a phony. And I can prove that your whole expedition that night was a contrived fairy tale.
How does the police lieutenant know that Campbell lied in his story? In just a moment, we'll know, but first...
Okay, what the heck are process shots?
Well, Ron, in the 1940s, a processed shot was made with a special camera. It incorporated, on the film, items not present in the actual scene photographed.
You mean photoshopped?
That's what we call it today.
I'm supposed to believe that they had that in the 1940s?
I really don't care if you believe me or not. It's a thing. But just remember I cared enough to tell you.
Okay, but how does that make him a murderer?
It is an FMM. How does anything make any sense?
Good point.
And now, back to our story.
Mr. Campbell, you don't think I fell for that story about your being a camera hound and accidentally being on the spot for the picture of the year, do you? For if you were a photographer, as you claim, you'd know that the feeble light from a dying fire is hardly enough with which to take a picture in a darkened room. If you'd used a flash, she would have seen you, but that was impossible. Because she wasn't even in that room. But you were, Mr. Campbell. And you killed your partner and dummied up this fake picture to throw a blame on his wife. Snap judgment's supposed to be a dangerous thing, Campbell. You proved it.
Well, that really didn't prove anything.
I don't disagree. After all, what is the best proof we have that the world is not flat?
Oh, I know the answer to that one.
Let's hear it.
If it were, cats would have knocked everything off the edge by now.
Is that you said?
Hello and welcome to the podcast, the place where we bring you the best in classic radio dramas and true tales of the supernatural. On this week's episode, we have a classic from Gunsmoke. Matt Dillon finds himself in a tense standoff with a soldier who's been unjustly accused of a crime. We also have a story from Silas and Catherine Greenlee and their incredible encounter with a UFO in Arizona. We end the show with Greg Marguerite reading us two science fiction stories written by Frederick Brown. So, let's get started with another review of an amazing audiobook. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Audible has sponsored the show now since July of 2019. We have reviewed more than 140 audiobooks, and the list keeps growing. Did you know that Audible has over 200,000 books available? And a lot of those are included in the free catalog. Audible is amazing, and it is the perfect companion to Ron's Amazing Stories. If you like this podcast, you're going to love Audible. So what am I listening to? The Downloaded by Robert J. Sawyer and narrated by Brendan Fraser. This is a brand new book from Audible. Also, it's one of the first audiobooks to make use of Dolby Atmos. What is that, you might ask? Imagine sound radiating from every direction with a depth and clarity so real that you will think that you've landed headlong into the action. Now, before I tell you about this book, here is a short sample from it. Of course, you'll have to imagine what Dolby Atmos would be like. After all, this podcast is broadcast in mono.
So, you're the person who wants to interview each of us? What? Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding your accent. When did I first realize something was wrong? Let's see.
I thought about my daughter Annabelle. I could serve my sentence and still be out before she turned 10, instead of her having to listen to decades of people telling her what a monster her father was without me around to explain. I'd be there with her as she grew up. Annabelle was just about the cutest little girl you ever saw. Yeah, I'm biased, but it was true. I wanted to hug her, to tussle her dark hair. But I couldn't do any of that. All I could do was look and listen, to laugh when she laughed, and to cry when the video ended, knowing half a year would pass before I got the next one.
So where are they? Where are our bodies?
Who in the hell knows?
Have you tried contacting Mission Control?
Of course. No answer. In fact, I can't pick up any radio signals. So, are you game?
When we made it to the second floor, we saw 4 men and 3 women using a conference table as a battering ram to try to break through the chamber's sealed metal door. It looked like it would give way any minute now.
What the hell are you doing?
They paused.
Who are you?
Demanded a broad-shouldered white guy.
Jürgen Haas. I'm a doctor.
You ever hear of a prison break, Doc? Well, we're gonna break this prison.
I can't force you to listen. I know you can disappear in a puff of smoke anytime you like, but I'm begging you to hear me out. Because see, I know what it's like to make wrong choices. So what's it gonna be? Do we get to live? Or are you gonna leave us all here to die?
In 2059, 2 vastly different groups of people undergo cryogenic suspension. While their bodies are frozen, their minds are still active and awake, and are uploaded into a massive quantum computer. The first group is all astronauts about to leave Earth on a one-way interstellar colonization mission. The second group consists of convicted murderers and volunteers who elected to serve their sentences in a virtual reality prison. But while both groups are suspended, a global cataclysm devastates most of Earth, and their cryosleep is extended by over 500 years. When they're automatically awakened, downloaded, they discover that they are all that remains of humanity. And now they face a new crisis. A colossal asteroid is on a collision course with Earth. The question remains, will they find a way off the planet? Well, I'm not going to answer that. However, I will say that this is a fantastic story, and the voice acting is some of the best I've ever heard from Audible. As I said, this recording makes use of Dolby Atmos, and I'm here to tell you that it made the presentation not just good, but amazing. But what do you need to make it work? Well, for me, it was just my iPad and my Apple EarPods. However, it works with many Android and Windows products. There are a whole bunch of options. Just a bit about the author himself. Robert J. Sawyer is considered one of Canada's best-selling science fiction authors. He's won multiple awards and has published 24 novels. The main voice actor in this one is Brendan Fraser. He had his breakthrough in 1992 with the comedy Encino Man, and is best known for his role in the Mummy franchise. Also, I should point out that there is a full cast, which includes Luke Kirby, Vanessa Sears, Colm Feore, Andrew Fung, and many others. I have one more clip for you from this one. It comes from Brandon and Robert themselves about the story.
In the downloaded, I read the character of Roscoe Cadulian. He's a convicted murderer, and he killed his childhood tormentor. He agrees to a pilot sentencing program where inmates serve their time in cryosleep. The idea is that it still feels like a full 20 years in his mind, but it doesn't quite work out that way.
The inspiration did not come from science fiction, ironically. It came from mystery fiction. Being grilled by some interrogator whose identity we don't reveal until late in the story really appealed to me as a way of both exploring an interesting mystery and getting to the heart and soul of who these characters were.
There are some parallels that it's sort of projecting to our life now that I think will feel kind of relatable.
Action.
So much of acting is physical and about creating a sense of imagination and mystery, but you read aloud, you've got the author's work right there before you, and all of that thinking's taken care of. So it's just about finding the voice, really. It'll all be gone soon, won't it? Not just what's left of Waterloo and any of the other 21st century cities, but the pyramids, the Great Wall of China, every monument.
I was absolutely thrilled when they told me that Brendan Fraser was going to be Roscoe Cadulian in the Downloaded. Roscoe also, though, sort of rises to be more than he started as. He ends up being the person who's going to unify all the characters.
Yeah, he has his faults. He's rough around the edges, he's made some mistakes, but he has a soul. And I felt like that dichotomy made it interesting so that you could find what's sympathetic about that man.
In terms of Jürgen's journey, there's a sort of superiority that he has in his own sense of self that I think felt fresh and new to me. I also don't really think I've explored anything that's sort of in the future. The lights were on.
I wondered if they'd been on for the past 5 centuries or had lit up in response to my reanimation procedure. 5 centuries? Or was it?
Everyone who listens to it becomes their own director. They fulfill the story with the wealth of their own imagination. And in the Downloaded, it feels like it feeds the imagination more.
Well, if any of that appeals to you, please head to audibletrial.com/runsamazingstories and you can have the Downloaded for free. Here's what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook in 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out the service. This also grants you access to the included catalog, which is constantly updated with new stuff. In fact, it's how I found today's title. So, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. You won't regret it on this one. Thank you, Audible.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Our story today comes from Silas and Catherine Greenlee, who currently reside in Vancouver, Washington, but were both born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. I walk the park near my house every day. Doing this means that you're going to get to know your fellow walkers. This is how I met the Greenlees, and this is how I was told their fantastic story. But before I get to their tale, here are some facts. Did you know that according to the National UFO Reporting Center, Arizona ranks number 7 for states with the most UFO sightings? In fact, over 3,000 reports of UFOs have been filed so far this year in Arizona. That's a lot of sightings. Also, the largest mass report of UFOs came on March 13, 1997. This event became known as the Phoenix Lights. So when you hear Silas and Kathy's stories, keep this in mind. I sat down at a picnic bench with the two and pulled out my phone to record their story. They told me that they didn't want to be recorded. I could tell their story, but that I would have to write it. I opened an app to take notes and listened as Silas began. We were having a relaxing dinner in Litchfield Park near our home. It was a cool evening, and we just wanted to be outside. The weather had been impossibly hot, and it was a rare treat to be out. We were putting things away when an object appeared in the evening sky. I am a retired Air Force reconnaissance officer and know a bit about U.S. military craft. This was not one of those. He paused. The object came in from the southeast about 75 feet from our position and about 35 feet above the ground. It had a triangle shape, no visible markings, and seemed to be flat black. It also had a slight shimmer at its edges. There was this deep drone hum, not really heard, but it was felt. Neither of us moved in fear that something may happen to us. No Betty or Barney Hill thing in our lives. Silas stopped and then smiled. As the craft passed to the northeast, about 30 yards away from us, a beam of brilliant white light shot down to the ground from the front of the craft. It began to sweep left to right, as if it was searching for something. The odd thing was, as this beam struck the ground, there was a disturbance of dust rising as it swept. It was then Kathy took over the story.
I started to feel ill, nauseous. I asked Silas if he could feel it, and he told me all he felt was dread. We continued to watch that object as it faded out of sight. The direction in which it was traveling would lead it directly towards Luke Air Force Base. Soon after, my stomach eased and the feeling of dread passed. We both took a deep breath and were about to leave when we noticed that the airbase had come alive.
Silas picked up the story again. It was crazy. There were searchlights, sirens, and military police all along the security fence. We saw this because the park is on a slight rise above the base. We walked to our car and drove to the base. It was shut down. The main gate was closed, and MPs were not allowing anyone to enter. I even have a VIP standing at the base and was told to turn around and come back another day. The next day, the local news reported that a coyote had set off the perimeter alarm. It was not a coyote. The two continued to talk about their adventure. They spoke to friends and family, but no one else had seen the craft that night. The next time Silas found himself at the airbase, he spoke to several airmen friends of his and confirmed that the coyote story was just a ruse. But none of them saw anything that could have triggered the perimeter alarms. In the end, it was all quite a mystery. However, the Greenleys stand by what they say, but will only say that it was a UFO and nothing more. I want to thank Silas and Kathy for sharing their story and allowing me to tell it to you. I did change their last name at their request. Well, that is your story for this time. If you have one that you would like to share, like the Greenleys did, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com and click on the story submission banner. We want to hear your UFO story or anything else that you might want to share. Our featured story comes from one of my favorite series of the golden age of radio, Gunsmoke. It was created by director Norman Macdonald and writer John Meston. The stories take place in and around Dodge City, Kansas, during the settlement of the American West. The radio version ran from 1952 to 1961 and is commonly regarded as one of the finest radio dramas of all time. The television version ran from 1955 to 1975 and was one of the longest-running primetime programs in U.S. television history. It's also one that is still respected for its high values in all aspects. Our story today comes from the first season of the show, episode number 53. Matt unjustly puts a soldier in the clink, and that leads to trouble with his commanding officer. It is titled The Soldier, and it first aired in April of 1953.
Around Dodge City and in the territory on West, there's just one way to handle the killers and the spoilers, and that's with a U.S. Marshal and the smell of Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke, starring William Conrad. The story of the violence that moved west with young America. The story of a man who moved with it. Matt Dillon, United States Marshal.
What'd you say your name is, soldier?
Gallagher. That's my name.
All right, Gallagher. Now, don't you think you've had enough? It isn't even night yet.
I'll never have enough.
You plan to show up at the fort this drunk?
Lady, maybe I won't show up at the fort at all. Now, what do you think of that?
Gallagher, you better start worrying about what Captain Shaw's going to think, not her.
Aye, what are you doing here, Spear?
I've been an hour looking for you all over Dodge. How'd you get that drunk in an hour, anyways?
Drinking!
Are you responsible for this?
Oh, sure. The Indians pay me to keep you soldiers drunk.
That ain't funny.
He's a grown man, isn't he?
That's not the point.
What's the point?
You shut up, Gallagher. We'll be an hour late now, and that's all Captain Shaw needs to fix us.
Captain Shaw can go hang.
You wasn't so drunk I'd leave you and just ride out alone.
Yeah, that'd be just like you, Spear. Just like you.
Come on, get up out of that chair. I'll drag you out.
Oh, leave me be.
Come on.
I ain't have started here yet. Cut your peaches, gal. Thunder ain't rain.
Shut up, Gallagher.
Why don't you listen to your friend? You're just going to get into trouble here.
Who's kissing your hand anyway?
That's no way to talk.
I'll kill you for that.
Beat your junk.
Matt, make him stop.
All right. You want the same treatment, soldier? Huh? I had nothing to do with it, Marshal. What? He was drunk. And you're cold sober. Of course I am.
It's true, Matt. He just came in looking for him on the floor there, Gallagher.
I'll take your gun, soldier. Oh, you can't do this, Marshal. All right, now pick up your friend. We're going to
Matt,
jail.
listen to me. Gallagher started it. He was only trying to get him out of here. Back to the fort.
You can take him back tomorrow. Fighting's against the law in Dodge.
No, Matt.
Come on, let's get going, soldier. Pick him up. The past week, we'd had nothing but trouble in Dodge. Men had fought and gouged and knifed and shot each other that I began to wonder if they gave a thought to anything else in the world. It had set my temper on edge, and I suppose I'd become as bull-headed as they were. Anyway, I threw the soldiers in jail and went off to supper and forgot about them. For some reason, the town was reasonably peaceful that night. The change sort of took the edge off of me. Next morning, I felt half human for the first time in days.
I turned that cowboy loose early, Mr. Dillon. He seemed tolerably repentant.
Well, he should be, Chester.
But those two soldiers look pretty glum. What are you going to do with them, sir?
Oh, yeah. Well, you better go back and let them out, huh, Chester? We'll have the Army in here looking for them if we don't.
Yes, sir. You've done your time, men. The law has forgiven you. Out you go, free as little birds.
Oh, that sunlight'll blind me this morning.
We ain't about done our time, mister. In real trouble now. Oh, why do you say that? 'Cause it's true. We were sent to Dodge to pick up supplies, not to go to jail. You're not the first soldiers who've camped here overnight. Colonel Doby's a just man.
Captain Shaw's in command right now, Marshal. Colonel went to St. Louis for a time.
Well, I don't know Captain Shaw, but I'm sure... He's just about as reasonable as you are, Marshal. Just about. You're Spear, aren't you? And I was as sober yesterday, remember? I locked you up for fighting, not drinking. You locked us up. That's all that matters now.
Spear's right, Marshal. I guess I deserve what I'm going to get, but Spear don't.
And nobody was killed. You're not going to hang.
You don't know Captain Shaw. He can be awful hard.
A little extra duty won't hurt you.
First off, we'll be fined $10 by court-martial.
1 month's pay. Yeah, that's a little high, I agree.
There's nothing to what the cat might do on top of it. He's old Army. They say one time he gave a man 10 days' provisions and had him drummed out of camp with a straw halter around his neck and his coat turned inside out.
And that was Indian country, Marshal, not around here.
Well, the man's a scoundrel, that's what he is. Say, how'd the fellow make out, anyway?
You'll have to ask Captain Shaw about that, if he knows.
Well, the man must have done more than get drunk and fight. You won't get that kind of punishment.
No, but close to it. Captain's dead set against liquor. Not a man in the company's been allowed to drop since Colonel Doby left. Is that so? Sure is. Look, Marshal, I got it coming, but Spear here, all he done was try to get me back to the fort. You gotta try to do something about it.
Never mind, Gallagher. He won't do nothing.
Spear, I guess I was a little hasty locking you up. I'm sorry about it.
So am I.
All right. What can I do?
Ride out and explain it to Captain Shaw.
I don't like interfering in Army matters. But, all right, I'll do it.
You will?
Yeah, but I can't today. Well, tomorrow won't be too late. I'll be out there tomorrow afternoon.
I don't know whether to trust you or not, Marshal.
Then you'll have to find out if you can, Mr. Spear.
Yeah.
You can't blame him much, Marshal, but I sure hope you do it. All right, boys, you're late enough now. You better get going. Come on, Spear.
While you're talking to Captain Shaw, I think I'll go see the sutler, Mr. Dillon. He's an old friend of mine.
All right, Chester.
Name's Larson. Been selling goods to soldiers for 10 years that I know of. Say, I'll eat with him, too, in case you should get asked to supper.
Oh, fine. Say, doesn't that look like Spear there?
Where?
Just outside the fort there, the man with the shovel.
Oh, yeah. Say, what's he digging anyway?
Come on, let's ride over there. Hello, Spear.
You're too late, Marshal.
Why? What's happened?
We've already been tried, that's what.
Well, what'd they give you?
2 months' pay and a month's punishment.
What punishment?
I don't know, Marshal. The captain will work on that from day to day. He's got lots of ideas.
Is this one of them? Digging that hole out here?
This isn't exactly a hole, mister. It's a grave.
A grave? Whose grave?
Mine.
Oh, now, wait a minute, Spear.
Well, it's for me or somebody like me. That's what he said. Ask him about. There comes the guard. I gotta keep busy.
All right, I'll talk to you later, Spear.
I won't be hard to find.
And that's the whole story, Captain. I locked Spear up, too, and for no justifiable reason at all.
He was fighting, wasn't he, Marshal?
He was trying to get Gallagher out of there, that's all.
I have already decided Gallagher's punishment will be the more severe.
Yeah, but Spear doesn't deserve any punishment at all. Don't you see that?
If I may ask, Marshal, what is your interest in this case?
Look, I made a mistake, Captain. If I hadn't thrown Spear in jail, he'd be all right now. The man's been done an injustice.
Not exactly. He'd been an hour late in any case.
What?
He and Gallagher had orders to report here to Lieutenant Adams at 6 o'clock. But at 6 o'clock, they were arrested in Dodge. If they had not been arrested, it would have taken them an hour to ride to the fort. Therefore, they would have reported in at 7 o'clock, 1 hour late.
Oh, but Captain, Spear spent that hour trying to find Gallagher.
A soldier must learn to take care of himself, Marshal. Evidently, Spear hasn't learned. So it's my duty to teach him.
This just doesn't make sense.
I am a soldier, Marshal. You are a civilian. I wouldn't expect you to understand.
Anybody can understand what's just.
The Army has its own justice, Marshal.
Like making a man dig his own grave?
Oh, you saw him. Of course. Gallagher's digging one behind the fort.
Why?
Sentimental reasons, I suppose. Of mine, to be sure.
What does that mean?
It goes back a long way, Marshal.
You see, I served under General Winfield Scott at Veracruz in 47. And I remember an order he once sent down. And it concerned soldiers who'd been found drunk.
Now, don't tell me General Scott had them shot.
No. His idea was to impress upon the command that such a grave would be wanted sooner or later, either for the drunken man or for some drunken companion.
And did the soldiers understand that?
Soldiers understand orders, Marshal. Or they can be made to.
Tell me, Captain, what do you think Colonel Doby would do about this?
In Colonel Doby's absence, I am in command of this company.
Then Spear will be punished even though he's innocent, huh?
This is an Army matter, Marshal.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Marshal.
Marshal Dillon.
Yeah.
I'm Lieutenant Adams.
How do you do, Lieutenant?
I'm the officer Spear and Gallagher were to report to night before last.
Oh, yeah, the captain mentioned that.
Tell me, how'd you make out in there?
Well, I don't think Captain Shaw and I understand each other completely.
I knew it was hopeless. Thanks for trying, Marshal.
Tell me something, Lieutenant. What's the matter with Captain Shaw?
I couldn't say, Marshal. But he's been 30 years in the Army.
So?
Colonel Doby's been in 10.
Oh, I see.
Will you join us at mess, Marshal? We eat in about 10 minutes.
Oh, thank you very much. I'd like to, if you don't mind.
Sorry I can't offer you a drink. Captain's orders.
Yeah, I know. Lieutenant, when does Colonel Doby get back from St. Louis?
We haven't heard. Soon, I hope.
Yeah.
You see, Gallagher can take it. He knows he's guilty, for one thing. Spear, I'm worried about. Already, he's not the same man he was.
Yeah, I suppose he's lost faith in people.
He was always a fine soldier. I just hope he can hang on long enough.
No? Long enough for what?
Oh, let's say long enough for Colonel Doby to get back. Before Captain Shaw drives Spear to something like... Come along, Marshal. We'll wash up.
We will return for the second act of Gunsmoke in just a moment. But first, this Monday night, hear CBS Radio Suspense, starring Herbert Marshall in The Man Within by Graham Greene. Also Monday night on most of these same stations, the Lux Radio Theater presents Betty Hutton and Gene Barry in a delightful musical comedy, Somebody Loves Me. Now the second act of Gunsmoke.
I was pretty busy the next few days, and there wasn't much time to think about Spear. But when I did think about him, I got to wishing I'd never let myself be hired for this job. Nearly a week passed, and then one day, about noon, I went to the office and found Kitty waiting there with Chester.
I told her you'd be along any minute, Mr. Dillon.
It's nothing serious, I hope, Kitty.
Well, it could be, Matt.
She wouldn't tell me a word about it. I offered to help, but no, she said. She'd wait until you got here and then...
All right, Chester. Well, Kitty.
Matt, this morning, about 8 o'clock it was, I was...
Wait a minute. Lieutenant Adams.
Hello, Marshal. Chester.
Hello, Lieutenant.
This is Miss Kitty, Lieutenant.
Oh, yes, of course. I didn't recognize you, Miss Kitty. I mean,
that's all right, Lieutenant.
I'll be brief, Marshal. It's about Spear. He's deserted.
What?
Last night, just before chow.
How'd he get away?
Well, Captain Shaw hasn't had those men guarded very close. They're still digging graves, and with only one guard for the two of them. Spear took off when the guard was at the back of the fort near Gallagher, and so...
Well, have they found him yet?
No. But the captain has the whole company out after him. I just posted a couple of men at the depot. Most everyone else is fanned out over the prairie, horseback.
You think maybe the captain wanted him to run off, Lieutenant? Maybe that's why he made it so easy, huh?
A lieutenant doesn't judge his captain, Marshal. But I'm worried about Spear. He might do anything now.
Yeah.
I knew you'd be interested, so I just dropped by to let you know what's happened.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant.
There's something else, Marshal.
What?
Captain Shaw has ordered me to search the town.
Oh?
He's sending me 2 more men. I hope you won't object.
Well, ordinarily I would, but I understand.
Thank you, Marshal. Goodbye, Miss Kitty.
Goodbye.
Chester?
Bye, Lieutenant.
Matt, that's what I came to tell you about. Spear is hiding in my room.
What? Since when?
This morning he showed up about 8 o'clock. Said he has to hide during the day. He promised to leave tonight.
But why did he come to you?
Well, he remembered I tried to keep him from being arrested that day, and he said I was the only person he could trust.
Oh, I see.
I don't know what to do, Matt.
Is he armed, Kitty?
Yeah. Yes, he's armed. And he said if anyone but me tried to get in the room, he'd kill him. He's awful desperate, Matt.
Yeah. He's got to turn himself in, Kitty.
After the way he's been treated...
They'll catch him anyway, sooner or later. He's got to face this thing on his own free will. If he doesn't, it'll ruin him inside. He won't be any good again. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do.
All right, then go tell him.
I can't, Matt. I'm not a man. He wouldn't listen to me.
All right, I'll go.
You can't. He'll shoot you as soon as you open that door.
Well, look, you'll have to help us trick him, Kitty.
No, please, Matt. He trusts me.
You want to help him, don't you?
Yeah. All right.
Chester, go out and buy a big bag of groceries and hurry.
Groceries? Yes, sir, Mr. Dillon.
We'll wait for you here. Stay off of your heels, Chester. Quiet. All right, you go ahead, Kitty. We'll be there when he opens the door.
All right, Matt. It's me, Kitty. Open the door. I can't hold all these groceries much longer.
All right, come on in quick.
Take this. My arm's breaking.
All right, I got it. Hey!
All right, close the door, Chester.
Yes, sir.
Come over here and take his gun away from him.
I got it, sir.
All right. All right, now get up. I said get up. Now sit in that chair. And don't try anything.
I hope you're real proud, Kitty.
Now, wait a minute, Spear. Nobody's betrayed you. We're trying to help you, that's all.
Why don't you just shoot me, Marshal, and have it over with?
Spear, you've got a bad deal all around, but the trouble you're in right now is your own doing.
You're the one put me in jail.
I'm talking about your deserting.
Well, what about it?
I'm just telling you, you're responsible for that yourself. And you're the only one who can square it. Give yourself up.
Give myself up? You mean you're not taking me in?
I got nothing to do with it. This is between you and the Army.
Please, Spear, do it. He's right.
You mean I can walk out of here right now? And you won't stop me?
That's right.
Why are you doing this, Marshal?
Spear, I've been told that you're a good soldier. But right now you're in trouble. And you and I are both responsible for it. I shouldn't have thrown you in jail, and you shouldn't have deserted.
Well, so?
I'll do my part, and I think you'll do yours. You'll do yours by turning yourself in.
I don't know, Marshal.
Yeah, what, Chester?
Down there in the street. Lieutenant Adams and 2 soldiers, and they're headed right in here.
Give myself up, huh? You got it planned pretty neat, Marshal. Maybe the Army will give you a reward for this, huh? Maybe they'll
Adams
fix
said
it
he
so-
was going to search the town. That's all I know about.
And followed you right here, didn't he? You sure trust me.
All right, shut up a minute. Kitty, is that a closet there? Is it empty?
Look, well, almost, yeah.
All right, Spear, I'll prove that I trust you. They won't find you till you're ready to give yourself up. Now get in that closet and hurry.
You mean it?
Here, take my gun with you. Now do you think I mean it?
Your gun?
Go on, take it.
Oh, but I didn't mean...
All right, hurry up, get in there.
Mr. Dillon, are you sure you are to take a chance like that?
Open the door, Kitty.
Come in, Lieutenant.
Wait here, man.
Yes.
Well, hello, Marshal.
How are you, Lieutenant?
Chester.
Hello.
Sorry to bother you this way, Miss Kitty. We're searching the town for Spear, like I told you.
Yeah, well, I know, but how'd you get here so fast, Lieutenant?
Just a hunch. Guess it was a bad one.
It sure was. Miss Kitty'd never hide a fugitive of any kind in this world, no matter
Chester.
what he might have done.
Chester.
Yes, sir.
I hope you'll excuse me for bothering you, Miss Kitty.
Oh, that's all right, Lieutenant.
Well, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
So long. All right, Spear, they've gone. You can come out now. Well?
Here's your gun, Marshal.
Thank you. We'll leave you here, and I'll send Lieutenant Adams back alone. That is, if you've decided.
Okay, Marshal.
Oh, that's fine.
You're doing the right thing, Speed.
Chester, give him his gun.
Yes, sir. Here you are.
Thanks. Come on, Kitty. Chester.
So, Marshal,
Yeah?
I'll be all right now, Marshal. No matter what that captain thinks of.
Sure you will, Spear. Good luck to you.
Thanks, Marshal. I thank you.
There's Lieutenant Adams right across the street, Mr. Dillon.
You and Kitty go on into the Texas Trail, huh? I'll join you later.
All right, sir.
Hurry back, Matt.
Lieutenant Adams.
Yes, Marshal.
Where are your men?
Oh, they're scouting the Alafraganza there. I don't think they'll find him, though.
You don't?
No, I don't. I see you got your gun back, Marshal.
You don't miss much, do you?
I kind of wondered at first why you didn't have it upstairs there.
And?
Well, I don't suppose Captain Shaw'd much appreciate an officer who searched a room, didn't even bother with the closet, would he?
Captain Shaw might not, Lieutenant, but I think Spear will.
You be waiting for me, Marshal?
Mm-hmm.
It was a mighty long chance you took.
It was worth it. Let me know how he makes out, Lieutenant.
I sure will, Marshal. Especially seeing as how you kind of got a stake in him now. Well, so long.
Goodbye, Lieutenant. I heard later that Spear was treated rough for the next few days, but that he took it fine. And then Colonel Doby returned to his command, and he decided that Spear had been punished enough. 2 weeks later, Lieutenant Adams, accompanied only by Spear, was ordered on a scouting mission down toward the Cimarron. It may have been Indians, or it may have been the river, but neither man was seen or heard of again. Yesterday, I received a message from Colonel Doby. A formation is to be held at Fort Dodge, honoring those 2 good soldiers
The colonel thought I might want to be there.
Sundays in the daytime, CBS Radio now brings you a full hour of fun and melody with Arthur Godfrey and all the little Godfreys. It's 60 minutes of the best features from Arthur's shows heard during the week. Remember, Arthur Godfrey, Frank Parker, Jeanette Davis, Holly Loki, the Mariners, Julius LaRosa, and all the rest of the gang are yours on most of these stations for a full Sunday hour. Presented by CBS Radio tomorrow. George Walsh speaking. And remember, Amos and Andy are here every Sunday on the CBS Radio Network.
I liked this story. No shootouts or excess action, just a well-told story about life in the cavalry. What made Gunsmoke one of the best was the fact that John Meston, the creator of the show, insisted that the stories be historically accurate, real places, and real, authentic plot lines. In the late 1940s, CBS chairman William S. Paley, a fan of the Philip Marlowe radio series, asked his programming chief, Hubble Robinson, to develop a hardcore Western series about a Philip Marlowe of the Old West. Robinson delegated this task to West Coast CBS Vice President Harry Ackerman, who had actually developed the Philip Marlowe series. Ackerman and his scriptwriters created an audition called Mark Dillon Goes to Gouge Eye, which was based on one of their Michael Shayne radio scripts. It was recorded in July of 1949. A complication arose and the project was suspended for 3 years. That is when producer Norman McDowell and writer John Meston discovered it. They wanted to create a Western for adults, in contrast to the juvenile fare such as The Lone Ranger and The Cisco Kid. Gunsmoke was rethought, and another pilot was created with Matt Dillon, and the rest is history. The show drew critical acclaim for its unprecedented realism and true-to-life storytelling. How about that?
As read by amazing stories, read by amazing people.
This time on As Read By, we have 2 short science fiction stories read for us by Greg Marguerite. They both first appeared in Galaxy Science Fiction in February of 1954. They're quite amazing, and I think you're gonna enjoy them. The first is called The Experiment.
The first time machine, gentlemen, Professor Johnson proudly informed his 2 colleagues. True, it is a small-scale experimental model. It will operate only on objects weighing less than 3 pounds 5 ounces and for distances into the past and future of 12 minutes or less. But it works. The small-scale model looked like a small scale, a postage scale, except for 2 dials in the part under the platform. Professor Johnson held up a small metal cube. Our experimental object, he said, is a brass cube weighing 1 pound 2.3 ounces. First, I shall send it 5 minutes into the future. He leaned forward and set one of the dials on the time machine. Look at your watches, he said. They looked at their watches. Professor Johnson placed the cube gently on the machine's platform. It vanished. 5 minutes later, to the second, it reappeared. Professor Johnson picked it up. Now, 5 minutes into the past, he set the other dial. Holding the cube in his hand, he looked at his watch. It is 6 minutes before 3 o'clock. I shall now activate the mechanism by placing the cube on the platform at exactly 3 o'clock. Therefore, the cube should, at 5 minutes before 3, vanish from my hand and appear on the platform 5 minutes before I place it there. How can you place it there, then? Asked one of his colleagues. It will, as my hand approaches, vanish from the platform and appear in my hand to be placed there. 3 o'clock. Notice, please. The cube vanished from his hand. It appeared on the platform of the time machine. See? 5 minutes before I shall place it there. It is there. His other colleague frowned at the cube. But, he said, what if now that it has already appeared 5 minutes before you place it there, you should change your mind about doing so and not place it there at 3 o'clock? Wouldn't there be a paradox of some sort involved? An interesting idea, Professor Johnson said. I had not thought of it, and it will be interesting to try. Very well. I shall not. There was no paradox at all. The cube remained. But the entire rest of the universe, professors and all, vanished.
Ah, yes, the paradox, or the lack of one. Could the universe end so swiftly? Who can say? I do think I'm going to leave time travel alone. The second story is about alien warfare, and it's simply titled Sentry.
He was wet and muddy and hungry and cold, and he was 50,000 light years from home. A strange blue sun gave light, and the gravity, twice what he was used to, made every movement difficult. But in tens of thousands of years, this part of war hadn't changed. The flyboys were fine with their sleek spaceships and their fancy weapons. When the chips are down, though, it was still the foot soldier, the infantry, that had to take the ground and hold it, foot by bloody foot. Like this damned planet of a star he'd never heard of until they'd landed him here. And now it was sacred ground because the aliens were there too. The aliens, the only other intelligent race in the galaxy. Cruel, hideous, and repulsive monsters. Contact had been made with them near the center of the galaxy after the slow but difficult colonization of 12,000 planets, and it had been war at sight. They'd shot without even trying to negotiate or to make peace. Now, planet by bitter planet, it was being fought out. He was wet and muddy and hungry and cold, and the day was raw with a high wind that hurt his eyes. But the aliens were trying to infiltrate, and every sentry post was vital. He stayed alert, gun ready, 50,000 light years from home, fighting on a strange world and wondering if he'd ever live to see home again. And then he saw one of them crawling toward him. He drew a bead and fired. The alien made that strange, horrible sound they all make. Then it lay still. He shuddered at the sound and sight of the alien lying there. One ought to be able to get used to them after a while, but he'd never been able to. Such repulsive creatures they were, with only 2 arms and 2 legs, ghastly white skins, and no scales.
Well, there you have it. 2 very short stories designed to make you think just a bit. I hope you enjoyed them, and my thanks to Greg for reading them for us. That was episode number 624, and these are the people that made it great. Silas and Catherine Greenlee, and of course Greg Marguerite for reading us our 2 sci-fi tales. Thank you to all 3 of you. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.